example, slavery and the Nazis, unless you're going to argue that either one of those are justified, why should we not hold our economic decisions accountable for the many regrettable and avoidable mistakes which were made and continue to be made? This House regrets the dominance of the fossil fuel economy. Finally, this House does not regret the creation of fossil fuels, but this House regrets the dominance of it. If more time and resources were allocated to finding and strengthening alternatives, then as a society and as a species, we would not be on borrowed time. Thank you.
Okay. Actually, sorry, my phone is about to die, so I'm going to pull up a timer on my computer. Oh my god, y'all are so nice. Actually, I'll just use Louise. It's right here. I have an iPhone Plus, so. Okay. So first I want to start by saying that this debate requires each team to prove if we regret the dominance of the fossil fuel economy or not. We cannot argue whether the fossil fuels are bad or the effects of them. We're really just talking about like the dominance of the fossil fuel economy and whether we regret it or not. And in order to like stay topical and in order to like really like get into what we're talking about today, like it's important to focus on that. And I would like to point out that the majority of our opponent's case is involving just like what like fossil fuels are and climate change, and that's just like ultimately not what the debate is about. So first, I would like to address like so one of their first points was that we have doomed future generations and that our renewable resources aren't sufficient enough and the infrastructure is not sufficient. And then throughout the debate they brought up that like we knew about this for a long time. There was like, I think they brought up the date 1989 where congressmen were informed about like the detrimental effects of this. And so I would just like to say that we cannot compare like the technology and the activism that exists in 2022 to the like that same thing in 1989. We didn't have the same knowledge. We did, even though those congressmen were informed by climate scientists, like they still didn't know like where they would even go from there. So I just like don't think that that's a very like credible argument to be made. And then on the fact that our renewable resource infrastructure is not sufficient, we have provided a solution for that. We talk about in our third contention, we talk about LPGs, which are liquefied petroleum gas, which is it's a byproduct from natural gas processing, and so if it's not used, it's just wasted. And so if we can really hone in on that, and then especially when we're talking about third world countries and those economies that are really going to be impacted by this like drastic shift into renewable energies, that's really what we need to focus on here. And then the carbon capturing technology, that's a way for us to reduce CO2 emissions while fossil fuels still remain in the picture. So these are like tangible ways to be more sustainable as we're transitioning from fossil fuels into renewable resources. Next, so losing jobs in the fossil fuel industry. If you shut down fossil fuel industries and all sorts of non-renewable industries so quickly, you will put thousands, if not millions, of people out of work. And so they have not provided a tangible solution for how they're going to account for those jobs. And they haven't provided a way that they're going to make up for those salaries, and they haven't provided a way to like support those families. And if we're talking about the value of human life, which they have stated so much throughout their argument, we need to value the oil mechanics. We need to value the people that work in plastic factories. We need to value those workers that are contributing to the economy right now and benefiting from the fossil fuel economy if we're going to like argue over the value of human life. We can't just argue about the future of human life because we can all agree that that's something we need to be concerned about, but we need to talk about like the fossil fuel workers now because their lives are equally important as anyone's. Like we can't argue whose life is more important than the other. That's not what we're talking about today. And then furthermore, fossil fuels have brought us syringes, soap, etc., so many different things that make life easier and have contributed to the development of our nation. So for that reason, we cannot regret the dominance of the fossil fuel economy because of what it has done up to this point. We can regret, and I'm not going to say that. Our first contention talks about how much more fossil fuel jobs pay. And so like I stated earlier, like we need a clear answer for how we're going to make up for those salaries, and I think that that's a big contender and who should win this debate because that is like such a big part of our first contention, and they have failed to prove how their case solves better for that. And so furthermore, talking about renewable energy, because that's what we have transitioned to during this debate, nuclear energy is not safe. Hydroelectric energy has been proven to negatively affect local climates. We need to develop more efficient forms of renewable energy in order to make this transition, and that's what our case solves for, especially in our third contention. And so when we think about how many products we're using in this room, all of these, basically everything is because of fossil fuels. We cannot regret fossil fuels because of that. And then our opponents say in Crossfire that we are not debating how fossil fuels are benefiting us, but we cannot regret the dominance of fossil fuels because of how much they have benefited us. And they have really failed to address our third contention. They just continue to state how fast we need to act without providing tangible plans about how we're going to move from a renewable economy or a non-renewable economy to a renewable economy. And because of that, they don't solve for
time.
Yeah.
Great job, everybody. That was their last speech, everyone, so we're going to applause. We're so poetic.
You did get that. You did. You brought up a lot of really important points. But it really wasn't as
I don't need to know. Actually, my sanity was
Thanks. I was from my high school debate. You brought it out of the closet. I channel AOC. Thank you. Girl boss. Gatekeep girl. I'm only girl boss.
Y'all did great, by the way.
You guys whenever I was talking in Crossfire, I feel like I was always just interrupting you and not a word listen.
I apologize all the time, but I don't know, I'm acting like I'm gonna get mad at her because I speak over people.
No, I do too. I have a big problem with that.
Okay, so we were just talking, we both want to say that everybody did really good, and we want to talk about some strengths that both teams displayed. So we think that the affirmative did a phenomenal job with really diverse and really credible sources, and we think that the neg did a really great job centering the resolution. And so for choosing a winner, we did decide to go in favor of the neg because of the focus on the resolution and because of the intentional listening of the affirmation and the responses. So great job to everybody. I'm going to try and get your feedback in as soon as possible, and then your TA will release the grades. But you should all be really proud, and every single person gave a really great speech. So thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm running this class. Y'all really. Thank you. Y'all did great.
You did a great job.
You guys did really good.